Life is like a staircase. You just gotta keep climbing. Otherwise, if you start to overthink it, you'll have trouble taking the next step. There are no branching paths, no point in regretting the actions you didn't take. They say life is a series of choices, but that's nonsense cooked up by the old and bitter. Yesterday leads to today, and today leads to tomorrow, one step at a time. What lies ahead? You won't know until you get there. Welcome to the August Tale, and today we're going to be taking a look at Totono, otherwise known as Kimi no Takanajo no Koi, otherwise known as You and Me and Her, a love story. So a lot of people have been using this comparison I'm going to talk about, and I somewhat agree with them. So how many of you guys have heard of Doki Doki Literature Club? Me. Okay, I hear you guys. Now hear me out. Totono bears resemblance to the widely popular visual novel Doki Doki Literature Club. However, while Doki Doki Literature Club places a large focus on its horror elements, Totono places its emphasis on its romantic love triangle between the main three leads. I would describe its likeness more along the lines of White Album 2 and School Days. But while Doki Doki Literature Club merely scratches the surface of its unique narrative, Totono goes farther down the rabbit hole and performs spectacularly in every single way possible. This visual novel will make you question every choice presented to you. In every decision you make throughout the visual novel, you will be held accountable for those choices, and no matter what you do, those choices will stay with you. Totono gets you fully involved with what's happening in the story. It's interactive in the fact that the narrative is like a puzzle. It's a battle of wits, as you yourself will be challenged, and the visual novel will call you out for your faults and call you out for your bluffs. As the visual novel continues, Totono gets you largely invested in the narrative with how it drags you around with everything that's going on and holds you by the neck, as it makes you a part of the story. Especially in one particular scene. In a scene so absolutely incredible and unbelievably novel that will just leave you stunned. The experience is a deeply personal one, as every single playthrough is entirely unique to the reader, and it concludes with the best outstanding ultimatums that Totono will force you to make. Let's talk about the production for a bit. Totono is produced by Nitroplus, who is well known for their darker themes, mostly at the fault of this man. With some of Nitroplus's well-known works and collaborations like Chaos Head, Steins Gate, and Saya no Uta. The art style fits the nature of the work with its use of gentle, soft watercolors and washed-out backgrounds. The character designs are also very nice, with its grain effect on the characters creating a sense of depth and fitting the washed out backgrounds. The visual direction is excellent, affecting not just the visual effects, but goes as far as to affect the user interface itself, adding that creative spin to support its direction and narrative. Now, let's talk about the music. As soon as you begin Totono, you are introduced with Franz Liszt's Liebesstraum No. 3, a piano piece depicting the themes of love and loss of love. A work that begins with the promise of a dreamlike love before shifting into a turbulent roller coaster of emotions and mental turmoil. Quite the fitting track for the portrayal of Totono. Half of the tracks in Totono uses the piano as its vocal instrument, carrying the song's melody with a serene, dreamlike piano composition that invoke the essence of love, joyfully or tenderly. The other half invoke that same piano, but to use as tension, in which everything is not as it seems. That behind that dreamlike state was only merely an illusion. And when you take away that illusion, that first half of tracks isn't as fancy as before now, is it? Let's move on to a different topic. H scenes. Now, I don't mind people playing visual novels for H content, and I can respect that hustle. But, in most people's eyes, H content is mostly fluff material that can be easily skipped. However, I do not recommend skipping through these H scenes. All scenes have important narrative details inside of them. Some of these scenes range from telling subtle foreshadowing, to being heart-wrenchingly impactful, to just being outrageously bizarre. I would actually recommend going out of your way to get the 18+ version, because that hits on a deeper level. So with that out of the way, let's finally talk about the actual premise of the visual novel. Totono, or the English localized title, You and Me and Her, features three individuals. Shinichi, who wants nothing more than a quiet, ordinary life. Miyuki, the most popular girl in school who was once Shinichi's friend. And Aoi, the class misfit who proclaims she receives messages from God. In an attempt to help Aoi fit in, Shinichi enlists the help of Miyuki, his old childhood friend, to aid in his efforts. And thus the friendship trio is born. But as dormant feelings begin to arise, the bonds between these three start to fray as a deeper revelation will change the way they see this world and their romance. Shinichi is an average guy who wants nothing more than to have a quiet, ordinary life. The beginning half explores his fatalistic inferiority complex to Miyuki. It's a very well-written introspection into his own thoughts, comparing his mediocre, cynical self to his overly successful childhood friend. But over time, as he grows his relationship with Aoi and has more interactions with Miyuki, he is forced to face his feelings. Which brings up a valid universal point. You cannot achieve anything if you do not take that first step. You cannot achieve anything if you can't take that risk to move forward. A small concern I did have later on is when his personality would completely change upon making certain decisions, changing abruptly from being good-natured to cynical and overly jealous to understanding and sympathetic. And yet, I can't completely dismiss this, because this is justified in the fact that Shinichi, like most visual novels, is meant to be a self-insert character dependent on the reader. But I do think that these moments could have been better transitioned. Have you ever met someone who's completely far out of your league? Someone super popular and fantastic at everything they do, being seemingly perfect? That's what Miyuki is to Shinichi. Despite being Shinichi's old childhood friend, Shinichi glorifies Miyuki as someone that is unattainable, in which his interactions and involvement would corrupt her. Unfortunately, things are not always what they seem to be. As the relationship develops, Miyuki's repressed feelings and emotions flood out, revealing her incredible number of faults: paranoia, restlessness, creepy, intensely. Miyuki is a loving individual. She's deeply caring and very thoughtful. And as I spend lots of time with her, she always brings something new to the table and was always there for me. I was deeply invested into my relationship with her, and you should feel so too. But despite these faults, and trust me, it's a long shot, she still manages to be a very sympathetic character till the very end, through the worst of it all. And how the visual novel presents her tale is both pitiful and yet understandable. Why are we here? Just to suffer? Aoi is a strange girl when we first meet her, claiming she gets messages from God. After Shinichi first encounters Aoi on the roof, he dedicates his time to helping build a friendship with her, to which he is then introduced to Aoi's unique quirks. Aoi is a gamer. She often talks a lot about visual novels and how she's like a character heroine in a visual novel, saying that she's a romantic option for Shinichi. While a bit nonsensical, it's a cute trait of her. But over time, we are led to believe that there's more to her than she lets on, as it's shown off in one of the visual novel's most memorable shots. Her role is very unique, in that she is the trigger that moves the plot forward. She also creates doubt in both the reader and the cast that she may be hiding something far deeper. And with this detail, this revelation momentously and drastically changes our perspective and mindset about this story. It's those eyes, man. It's those eyes. But despite her personal secrets, Aoi is still very supportive of Miyuki and Shinichi. And it's this confliction of feelings, trying to be a great friend for the two of them, while also wrestling with her own growing emotions, that Aoi has to come to terms with. It's an honest, tried-true, effective characterization involving love triangles. And when the focus is brought to her, Aoi has to deal with her newfound emotions after spending time with Miyuki and Shinichi. Purely her journey from an emotional misfit to a supportive and loyal friend is a pleasant sight to see. And it's this heartfelt encouragement, combined with her deepest secret, that makes the rest of this visual novel absolutely devastating. The three get along pretty well together, and the time the whole cast spends together are indeed happy days. And Totono could have benefited from more of these slice-of-life scenes featuring the three. But alas, these moments are short-lived. It is, after all, a love triangle. Now, there are some unsettling elements that will turn some people away. Now, to those people, if I were in their position, I'd feel the same way. It's frustrating, it's painful, and it makes me furious. I understand. But to those same people, I would argue that this is a necessary and justified element for the sake of the narrative, and it really homes in on the main point that the visual novel makes. And thinking in retrospect after the choices I made at the end. Look, I get it, okay? I understand. I'm sorry. Now, let's wrap things up. Totono isn't for everyone, but as someone who gets largely invested into characters and their personal stories, especially in the visual novel genre, Totono was an intimate journey. Totono leads you on with its tale of romance before grabbing you by the shirt, throwing you down on the ground, and unapologetically beating you over the head while chastising you. It's strange. To be honest, while I can try to explain and convince you about how much of an effect Totono can get, I don't think I can fully express how impactful the visual novel was. After finally choosing my decision at Totono's final ultimatum, after pondering for several minutes, I just stood there, tremendously empty and in thought-provoking limbo. Totono challenges the preconceived mindset of the visual novel genre and the outlook of choices, as its unique direction serves to elevate the narrative to its highest potential. It's a visual novel that I highly encourage everyone to read for a tremendously different and one-of-a-kind experience. Totono gets a 5 out of 5 with a seal of recommendation from me. You can find the all-ages version of Totono on Steam with the 18+ version on Just USA. Subscribe if you liked the video and want to see more. Check out some of my other anime visual novel reviews on my channel playlist. Links are in the description down below.